Hi, my name is Simon Mastri. I'm a jazz musician, a producer, current student at Tri-C, and owner of Spin Cycle Records here in Cleveland, and I want to talk to you about my experiences at the Tommy LiPuma Center for Creative Arts. Who inspires me in jazz recording and why? Um, for jazz, it definitely is people like Bill Evans and Stan Getz, just for their melodic interpretation and their knowledge of harmony, and then also bass players that were just able to really move the bus, like Ray Brown, Christian McBride. Um, Other influences are obviously my teachers here in Cleveland, people like Ernie Krivda, Steve Enos, Dominic Farinacci, Glenn Holmes, Kenneth LeGrand, and then my teacher in New York, Buster Williams, who kind of was able to reshape how I think of myself as an artist, how I think about creativity, and music as a whole. For recording, people like Rudy Van Gelder and Tom Dowd, engineers that were able to get such high quality recordings from what would be, by modern standards, really limited resources. For early lessons learned about musicianship, as a bass player, it really gets drilled in very early about really listening to everyone else because you are there to support the rest of the band. Your main purpose is to make everyone else sound good, and by extension, then make the group sound good, make the music sound good, and that just gives you a very different perspective on music making as a whole. And I found, as a person in general, that the limelight is not always necessary for what you need to be doing. Sometimes a supportive role is just as important, if not more. As far as recordings, for jazz at least, some of the really early and impactful records would have been Time Out by Dave Brubeck, Birth of the Cool by Miles Davis, and then Solar Energy from the Ray Brown Trio. For jazz students, one of the biggest things that I could recommend is, of course, really spend time practicing, learn your ear training, learn your music theory, and then also make sure to really listen to your teachers. They know a lot more than you might realize they do right at the moment. Definitely starting the Tri-C Jazz program when I was 17, that was a hard one for me. But those lessons stuck with me and ultimately made me a much better musician. For recording, no, there's a lot more science in this than you might realize, but if you really take the time to learn it, your recordings will, they get so much better if you just spend the time to really learn the fundamental knowledge of it.